Ani, Adele Loosemore and Dijnakas, Shebahonaning and Danshaba. Hello, my name is Adele Loosemore and I'm a Treaty Indian from Shebahonaning. My community is at the entrance to the North Channel of Georgian Bay, in the Robinson-Huron Treaty area. Today my community is more widely known as Killarney, Ontario. This video is the first in a series in which I take a look at the Métis ancestry of some of MNO's Métis citizens. This video focuses on Jordyn Playne. She is a past president of MNO's Youth Council. If you want more detailed information about MNO's policies and registry practices, in the description box below this video, there's a link to the first video in this series called Policies and Practices. Here's the shorter explanation. According to MNO, people who were half Indian and half European are not their Métis ancestors. And neither are their children. MNO's Métis ancestors are people with two parents of mixed Indian-European blood. But MNO doesn't follow its own registry policy. Many people that MNO says are not their historic Métis ancestors are in their registry as historic Métis ancestors. And many people that MNO says they will not accept as members of their organization are members of their organization. Let me give you an example. This biography from 2022 is on MNO's webpage about a youth leadership conference. I added that yellow line where it says that Jordyn Playne is a descendant of the Dusome Clermont Métis family from Drummond Island. In October 2023, as shown in this image, Jordyn Playne appeared before the Standing Committee on Indigenous Affairs as the president of the MNO's Youth Council and the youth representative on the MNO's Provisional Council. She identified herself as a descendant of Marguerite Dusome of Penetanguishene, and she also said, "My Métis ancestors were forced off their lands, but always maintained their community around the Upper Great Lakes." Forced off their lands is a reference to Drummond Island, near the west end of Manitoulin Island. MNO maintains that there was a Métis community on Drummond Island, whose people migrated to Penetanguishene around 1828. In 2024, Ms. Playne wrote a letter to aureliamatters.com saying she wanted to clarify some incorrect information that had been published in a column called "New Threat Could Erase Local First Nations Community." That's when she caught my attention. In the description box below this video, there are links to the column and the letter. There's also a link to the video I made about Ms. Playne's letter. Also in 2024, when Ms. Playne was a candidate for councillor of MNO's Region 7, again she highlighted her ancestor, Marguerite Dusome, in a short biography on MNO's website. People probably assume that since Marguerite is the family member being highlighted, she must be one of MNO's documented Métis. But here's the situation. These images are from the report that MNO compiled about the Dusome Clermont family. I'm going to take a closer look at the section of the family tree that I highlighted with a yellow rectangle. It's the part of the tree that represents Marguerite Dusome's descendants up to 1918. The legend on the left is also from the same chart. I cut and pasted it here. The orange arrow on the left is pointing at the gold-colored circle that MNO uses to mark a person on the chart who has been identified as a documented Métis. No one in this chart has been given a gold circle. There are no documented Métis in this branch of the family. Even though MNO didn't identify anyone in this chart as documented Métis, the legend indicates that the lines leading to each of the people in this chart represent direct Métis lineage. I want to remove the extra people in this chart and add others, so that only Ms. Playne's direct ancestors are included. We know who comes next in the family chart because Jordyn Playne was interviewed on a show called Métis Minute with Samantha Loney. At 2 minutes and 13 seconds, Jordyn named her ancestors, beginning with Marguerite Dusome and ending with her father. I placed a yellow rectangle around Marguerite Dusome's name in the upper left of the screen. MNO uses that shade of light blue to indicate that she's a root ancestor, but MNO doesn't identify Marguerite as a documented Métis, not in this chart and not in the ethnicity chart that begins on page 12 of MNO's report on the Dusome-Clermont family. Marguerite married Zephyrin Ernest Marchand in 1866. At the time of their marriage, they were living in La Fontaine. According to Micheline Marchand, the Marchands were in the first wave of French settlers from Quebec, who came to live in La Fontaine near Penetanguishene. The map you see here is from page 52 of Marchand's 2007 work, showing the area of Quebec that the first French settlers came from. If you want to see more, MNO has Ms. Marchand's document available on their website. There's a link to it in the description box below this video. This image is from Google Maps. I added a yellow arrow to mark the location of La Fontaine and a red arrow for Penetanguishene. According to Marchand, these two communities had very different populations. French settlers from Quebec versus voyageurs and Métis, as she calls them. On page 69 of her report, she says they were quite different in their culture and behavior because they originated from two different societies. The Marchand family is part of the French settlers community, La Fontaine. Philippe Marchand, also of La Fontaine, was born in 1879, almost 20 years after 1860, the date that MNO says their historic Métis community of Penetanguishene began to be controlled by non-Indigenous governments. Philippe married Josephine Legault in 1909. Part of their marriage record is shown on the screen. This image shows the marriage record of Josephine's parents, Louis and Clementine. Their names are last on the list. Louis Legault came to La Fontaine from Saint Anicet, Quebec. If Marchand's map was just a little longer, it could include Saint Anicet, which is on the south side of the St. Lawrence River, a little west of that capital C that is shown on the bottom left of the map. Next is Alva Florence Marchand. She was born in 1918 in LaFontaine and married Stanley Playne in 1939 in Penetanguishene. They had at least one child, who is Jordyn Playne's father. MNO does not identify a single documented Métis or a mixed ancestry to mixed ancestry couple in this family line. The 1901 Canadian census is MNO's go-to census because it includes a category called racial or tribal origin. Zephyrin and Marguerite and their children, including Philippe, are recorded as white French Canadians. But MNO declared that Angelique Dusome, Marguerite's sister, is a documented Métis. What about that? Well, it's another one of those cases where MNO is not following their own registry policy. According to MNO, Angelique's father, François Dusome, is a white man, and her mother, Françoise Clermont, is First Nations. So Angelique is actually not one of MNO's Métis ancestors, who MNO claims are all children of two mixed ancestry parents. And besides that, Angelique was not Ms. Playne's ancestor. She was Ms. Playne's 3 times great-aunt. Your aunt is a family member and a relative, but she's not your ancestor. Your ancestors are your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and so on. And I want to show you this about Marguerite Dusome's parents. This image is from MNO's assessment document for the Dusome Clermont family. It says François worked for the Northwest Company at Red River, Manitoba, and married Françoise Clermont, a woman of the Wild Rice tribe who came from Red River. Some people will say, there's your Métis heritage right there. But MNO did not identify either of these people as Métis. They refer to them as forebearers. In MNO's policy, that means they are a white man and a First Nations woman. They're not going to turn into Métis people, no matter how many years they lived at Red River. And all the children they have may be half-breeds, but they're not Métis according to MNO's registry policy. Earlier in this video, I showed you the claim Ms. Playne made in 2022 that the Dusome family was part of the Drummond Island community. And in 2023, Ms. Playne told the Indigenous and Northern Affairs Committee that her ancestors were forced off their lands. MNO says the Dusomes left Red River and went straight to the Penetanguishene area sometime before 1833. So what historical evidence is there that the Dusomes ever lived as part of the so-called Métis community on Drummond Island?